The US President Donald Trump has taken pains to build his image as a results-driven head of state. In the process, he's come across as unconventional, to say the least. So it didn't come as a surprise when he agreed to meet the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, a meeting that is supposed to happen on the 12th of June in Singapore. But at this point, the question isn't so much about what will happen at this meeting, but will the meeting happen at all? Trump sort of predicted the current situation when he called Kim Jong-un a smart cookie. As it turns out, Kim is now testing the US president's patience by indicating reluctance over the meeting. Complicating matters further is China's role in the entire matter. Beijing, remember, is considered the most powerful backer of the reclusive North Korean regime. So can China, the United States and North Korea make peace? That question is a tough one to answer. In the meantime, here's what Trump and the South Korean President Moon Jae-in said about the situation at the White House.
We are working on something, and, there's a chance that it'll work out. There's a very substantial chance that it won't work out. I don't want to waste a lot of time, and I'm sure he doesn't want to waste a lot of time. So there's a very substantial chance that it won't work out, and that's okay. That doesn't mean it won't work out over a period of time, but it may not work out for June 12th. But there's a good chance that we'll have the meeting. A little disappointed because when Kim Jong-un had the meeting with President Xi in China, the second meeting, the first meeting we knew about, the second meeting, I think there was a little change in attitude from Kim Jong-un. So I don't like that. I don't like that. I don't like it from the standpoint of China. Now, I hope that's not true. President Xi is a world-class poker player. And I'd probably maybe doing the same thing that he would do. But I will say this, there was a somewhat different attitude after that meeting, and I'm a little surprised. Now, maybe nothing happened. I'm not blaming anybody, but I'm just saying maybe nothing happened and maybe it did. But there was a different attitude by the North Korean folks when after that meeting. So I don't think it was a great meeting. Nobody knew about the meeting. And all of a sudden, it was reported that he was in China a second time. The first time everybody knew about. The second time it was like a surprise. And I think things changed after that meeting. So I can't say that I'm happy.
북미 정상회담도 반드시 성공시켜서
And I have every confidence that President Trump will be able to achieve a historic feat of making the upcoming US-North Korea summit successful and end the Korean War that had been lasting for the past 65 years. And also, along the way, achieve complete denuclearization of North Korea, establish a permanent peace regime on the Korean Peninsula, and also normalize relations between the United States and North Korea. I have every confidence that he will be able to make a historic turnaround in this sense, and I will spare no effort to provide all necessary support.
And China, for its part, has refused to get pulled into the issue publicly. The Foreign Ministry spokesperson only went as far as to say that Beijing will continue to play a proactive role in the matter.
We always encourage and welcome the United States and North Korea to deepen mutual trust and advance political settlement of denuclearization on the peninsula through direct dialogue. Actually, as you may have noted, the two countries are still preparing for the summit. We hope the two sides will seize the opportunity, enhance their dialogue, meet each other halfway, eliminate disturbance, and strive for a smooth summit.
Meanwhile, the Washington Post is reporting that the North Korean leader is skittish ahead of his meeting with Trump. In an exclusive report, the Post says that the White House suspected a delay in the meeting last week itself when a North Korean delegation failed to show up for a scheduled meeting with US officials in Singapore. The Post quotes sources as saying that Kim Jong-un is concerned about a military coup while he's away in Singapore. That being so far away from home could create a situation leading to his unseating. Kim is also said to have indicated worries about the venue during his meeting with U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo last month. The Post says that while Pompeo discussed the roadmap for the peninsula's denuclearization, the North Korean leader kept questioning him about details like refueling his plane and how many bodyguards he could bring with him to Singapore. The report says the US is now sending 2 senior officials to Singapore this weekend to try and settle logistical details for the Kim-Trump summit. So is the Trump-Kim summit in jeopardy because of Kim's nerves or Trump's bombast? David Nakamura of the Washington Post, one of the reporters on that exclusive report, is joining me right now from Washington. David, good evening. Thanks for making the time to speak with us here at WION. Logistics, security and the situation at home while he's away. Which of these do you think is the most worrying factor for Kim Jong-un right now?
I think it's all in play right now. You know, the North Koreans started getting very upset, issuing some public threats about potentially canceling this meeting last week based on some comments the National Security Advisor for Trump, John Bolton, had said, suggesting the North needed to give up their weapons the same way that Libya did. And then North Korea believes that Libya's downfall for their dictator Muammar Gaddafi in 2011 was directly tied to their giving up their nuclear weapons. So that was the first red flag. But the second, as you said, was this missed meeting in Singapore between lower-level aides that was supposed to deal with logistics. And now they're trying round 2 of that this coming weekend. So I think we're in a really big week right now. I think Kim is a little bit nervous, you know, stepping this far out on the world stage. He has a lot at risk as well. It's not just Donald Trump that is taking a risky move here. But, you know, I think that you saw the president. He said a lot of different things yesterday, but it's clear that he wants this summit to happen, and his aides are headed to Singapore to try to nail this down. So I think by next week, early next week, we should know for, you know, one way or the other where this is headed.
Right. And speaking of what he said yesterday, there were attempts in there also to sort of assuage fears by Mr. Trump, you know, when he spoke at the White House. But has the Libya model of the past and, of course, the United States pulling out of the Iran deal very recently caused further concern and made the U.S. seem a little bit more disingenuous, if you will?
Absolutely. John Bolton worked for the George Bush administration and was very hawkish on North Korea. He does not believe talks will work. He does not trust North Korea to follow through on any agreement that they sign, but he works for the president. He said now his own views do not carry the day. It's Donald Trump's views, and Trump staked a lot of his political reputation on foreign policy on this summit. Trump has himself built up the expectations about a peace deal, about denuclearization. He hasn't said it himself, but others have suggested Trump, you know, would be eligible for a Nobel Peace Prize. I think that's getting a little bit carried away. This is a long process. North Korea has not made clear that it intends to give up nuclear weapons in any way. They said they're going to destroy this nuclear test site this week. We'll see if they follow through. But that doesn't mean they're willing to give up the arsenal they spent 30 years building. And so I think most analysts see this as a long process. The summit would be a first step, but then to have to hammer out details of inspections and incremental steps forward on both sides is what this is all about. And so whether Donald Trump has a patience for a longer-term process is not clear. He seems to really want to declare victory after June 12th.
Absolutely, he certainly does, and he also indicated that he's very unhappy with the change in tenor after the second meeting between Kim and Xi Jinping of China. He said that that meeting wasn't a scheduled one that the United States wasn't aware of. But in your report, you also indicate that there were concerns among policymakers in the United States already about the preconditions for this meeting. Yeah. So that factor too has to be looked at.
It does. I mean, I think China has a big stake in this, of course. China is the biggest trade benefactor for North Korea. Their relationship is not great, but China is concerned that any deal down the road could draw North Korea away from Beijing's influence and more toward the West. And so their long-term play is to guard against that. So there's a lot of complicating factors. But I think analysts have told me in the last 24 hours that Trump is trying to blame China when really he has to look at his own administration and his own expectations, because he's guilty of some self-delusion that Kim was going to walk in and sort of hand over the keys to his nuclear arsenal in Singapore. That's just not the case, and that the North Koreans have not given any kind of change in their idea, in their position for many, many years, and that Kim Jong-un is not going to do that. And so Trump can't expect that, and so just sort of blame this on China's influence is too simplistic.
Absolutely. Last question. Trump himself, David, had one point called DMZ as the apt place for this meeting to take place.
Yeah.
Going by Kim Jong-un's concerns about being so far away from home with the summit taking place in Singapore, why do you think the DMZ didn't come through as, the possible venue for this summit? It would have been, I guess, would have dealt with some of Kim Jong-un's fears at least.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, we know that Moon Jae-in of South Korea and Kim met at the DMZ. Trump seemed enamored with the images that came out of there of the two leaders holding hands and walking back and forth. Trump likes a big show. And after that, he tweeted, oh, hey, that looks like a great location for us. But I think the aides at the White House did not really consider, they didn't want to do that for a number of reasons. It would look too much, I think, like the President of the United States sort of calling on Kim Jong-un and traveling right to his doorstep. A focus maybe on ending the war rather than on nuclear weapons, some sort of peace treaty, because the symbolism of that war zone. So I think that they wanted a more neutral site, a little bit of a grander location, a country like Singapore that has relations with both North Korea and the United States, a media capital in the center of Asia or Southeast Asia, made more sense, a little bit more neutral territory. So I think that's where we are. But you're right. In light of these fears and concerns about basic logistics from North Korea, of a leader who has taken very few trips, only 3 since he took power in 2011 outside of his country, that it does raise questions now. Would something closer have been better?
Absolutely. So Singapore, great venue on paper, but it might just not happen. David Nakamura, thank you for taking out the time and speaking with us here at WION. Appreciate it.